I don't know how to say this other than by just saying it. What I'm hearing people suggest on various shows regarding President Trump's chances for success at the appellate level absolutely it astounds me for reasons that I will explain. First and foremost, I think sometimes they say things because they want, these are television versions, they want people to believe something. That may or may not be true. That's number one. Number two, they say things which reflect the current theme of the show, of the network, of the whatever it is. And it, how do I say this? It involves keeping with, ensuring that they'll be asked back. What do I mean by that? You're not going to have somebody on the Harris Faulkner show on Fox News say that, oh, Trump doesn't have a chance on appeal, and there's a very good chance that he could go to prison. They will say, thank you very much, never have you on again. Even though that's the most learned answer, perhaps, because it doesn't comport, it doesn't stick with, it doesn't jibe with with stationality. It doesn't connect with what other people are saying. Now, I want you to understand a couple of things here. First and foremost, he's not going to appeal. The Supreme Court is not going to hear his case. There's no federal question here. There's no. He's an ex-president. I don't think immunity is going to apply to any of this stuff. It's ridiculous. People just think that the Supreme Court turns down cert cases or cert requests in capital punishment. They don't care about that. That's number one. Number two, if Trump is really going to win an appeal, believe it or not, the most important issue is going to be the actual evidence, the what was heard. Stormy Daniels, I don't know about that. Maybe because there might have been salacious, but the defense lawyer may have waived some of these things by objection. I don't know, or by failing to object. If you don't object at trial, you waive the right to appeal it. An appellate court is not going to hear something that you believe is wrong if you never brought it to the trial court's attention in the first place. Again, unless it is so egregious, or unless there's a thing called standing objections. So that's one thing. But Trump should have stipulated to it, that's for sure. But the things that I find interesting, believe it or not, are the cases involving and the theories involving Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen, two things. One, not that he's a convicted felon, not that he's a serial liar, not any of that stuff. No, that's not it. It's the fact that they were let the jury know that he pled guilty to a variety of election-related frauds, and that he's a bad guy. And the reason that Judge Mershon said, well, I'm doing that so that you can better assess his credibility. The argument that could be made is that, no, what that did was that gave the jury the impression that, oh, well, since he was guilty of election fraud and election abuses, then Trump must be as well. Next, to exclude the testimony from Brad Smith. This is critical to explain to him that, especially since you are going to be using as part of the criminal conspiracy, you might, though we're not sure because the judge says you don't have to be unanimous, but in the event you were to base any kind of election law chicanery, if that's true, the issue then becomes, and this is fascinating, the issue then becomes, well, why wouldn't you want to have someone from the FEC on to explain that what Trump did is not even against the law? It's not even election related, because it was something that anybody could have done. And there is a subjective test, objective, meaning it didn't matter what Trump thought, whether Trump said, hey, I'm pulling the wool over the eyes of the American voter or the New York voter by paying off this chanteuse. No. The objective standard is, were the charges that he was involved with, were they in any way part of the election scheme, the election process, the election? And I believe Mr. Smith would say no. Absolutely not. Not in the least. So, that's it. Also, one more thing, maybe introducing that David Pecker had signed a non-prosecution deal may give somebody the impression that, well, okay, he's guilty of something too because they made him a deal, and that may be the least of the issues. But the Cohen problem, that's really problematic. Now, aside from that, you could say the charges itself, the jury instructions, you can go through that depending upon what they're actually objecting to. I hope he has a great appellate team. I do not understand why Stormy Daniels was on the stand for a second. And I'm not even sure what Michael Cohen had to do with anything either. Because every time this sleazebag is on the stand, it gave the jury the impression that what he was doing was, in essence, saying, if you hate me, you should find him guilty too, because if I'm a crook, he's a crook too. I was his lawyer. I was his fixer. I did stuff for him. He knew I'm a crook. You don't let somebody like me get away with this without him knowing. Of course he knew what we don't know, what crime we don't know. That's where it stands. As far as Trump facing incarceration, I would probably predict that Mershon he cannot look crazy. I know you might say he's looked crazy before. Within the eyes of the law, he might want to do something that, believe it or not, how do I say this? He might want to do something where he can, for example, suspend the sentence. Sentence him to 3 years, suspended, provided he can, complies with certain conditions. So he could say, I sentenced him to something. It obviates the Secret Service issue, the security problem, and all these other particular issues as well. These are the issues. These are the issues. And they're also very interesting because the judge clearly has to satisfy his Democratic political handlers, the overlords, but he must also remain within the alleys and the lanes of the law. And believe it or not, he's a good judge. He is nobody's fool and is not some wildly crazed or corrupt person. It's so funny that how many people for the first time walked in or saw a case and said, boy, that judge is rude. It's like, that is not the rule, but it is not exactly earth-shattering. Thank you so much for watching, my dear friends. Thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe. Subscribe here. This is my legal channel. This is Lionel Legal. This is my law channel. This is my legal channel. This is where we talk about the law, jurisprudence, and all matters juridical, and how they are portrayed in media, how media affect it, how, believe it or not, the law is at the center of everything. Have a great and a glorious day, my friends, and comment as you see fit.